people on this thing over here.
All right. I think we're up and live now, Tammy. Can you hear me okay still?
I can.
Excellent. All right, cool. I don't know that we have any viewers as of yet. We didn't really super advertise this one. So, and it's a Monday at 2 o'clock. Obviously, people are busy and running around. We don't do a whole lot of live, but we got Casey. I guess that's something, right? So I'm going to do what I can to kind of keep track of this here. Somebody just give us a thumbs up. Make sure you can see us. Oh, okay. We got Casey. Hello. All right, cool. All right. So, thank you for doing this. I know you leave at what time? Tomorrow morning. So obviously, I'm sure a little bit of running around.
Yeah.
Oh my God, 30?
That's what I have to get up. I have to get up. But, oh my God, 30.
You're such a morning person, though.
I am. I'm delightful in the morning.
I will have your latte. I'll have your latte waiting for you when you get off the plane.
Prior to 9 a.m., I am a jewel of humanity.
Where's Dan for independent confirmation of this?
Yeah.
So I've been starting each of these lives with, you got to see some questions ahead of time that people provided, but I've been starting with an independent either thought, phrase, interaction, and I had to, as soon as I was like, okay, I'm going to be talking to Tammy, languaging has to be the one. So obviously the joke phrasing is really popular in current nomenclature, but we use the word languaging a lot. And it actually has like a much deeper utility behind it. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep you and I could, schedule this for 10 minutes and go on for an hour and 10 minutes very easily. So I'm going to try to keep it, concise as much as possible. But if you could, because I know Rory really likes, as much as he made fun of that word initially, he likes it a lot now. He might not admit it a lot. He might not admit it, but he does he uses it a lot. So if you could unpack that word languaging and its utilitarian purposes.
Sure. I'm pausing because I'm thinking about the need to be brief here. So when words are symbols, and they represent the object or thing. And then when we talk about stuff that doesn't have an object or thing, that it's more of a concept, then words become even more symbolic and more esoteric. And how we relate to words and how we string them together, i.e. language, is very powerful. And there's a guy, at the moment I can't remember his name, but I can see the book, that wrote extensively about, he's sort of a philosopher and not really a neuroscientist, but he kind of thinks about things from that perspective. Kind of think outside of the cultural language that raised you, in a sense. Like, you can press the boundaries significantly and make it broader and wider and deeper and more flexible, but you cannot ever completely escape how the world was defined by the language that you grew up inside of. So words are powerful, and words have a lot of impact on us. So languaging is turning language is a noun and turning it into a verb. How do we language something so that it communicates really what we want to be communicating? And so many things that we talk about, the birds.
Yeah.
Really? The Blue Jays want to participate. I came outside to get away from the needy dog, and we get the Blue Jays in the background.
Okay.
Fantastic. So anyway, there are so many things that I think that we talk about, and in violence dynamics as a whole, that we don't have one-for-one correlation in vocabulary for. And so it's a lot of crafting. our conversation, hence languaging. We need to figure out how to language that, because that's the delivery method. You know, it's like, it's how I deliver the information to you is through those words. So
yeah, I certainly know I've used it a lot more. Every time I feel like I'm fumbling to explain something and put it into the other person's nomenclature, I have that internal joke in my own head now of languaging. This is that moment in time where you have to kind of play with it a little bit. I guess slightly off script here. Tomorrow night there's a tentative plan for Casey to come and take over one of my jiu-jitsu classes and teach from his perspective. And on paper, changing one big gorilla alpha male with a jiu-jitsu background for another big gorilla alpha male with a jiu-jitsu background might not be exactly, you know, the biggest shift in the world, but he's going to explain things differently than I do. And I always get excited for my students to have that opportunity. He's not quite as tall as I am, so his language is going to be a little bit different, especially in a physical art like jiu-jitsu. And I know I mentioned this to you. I have not and have never been a female in any way, shape, or form, and I've definitely never been a teenage girl. And several of them are looking forward to having you in the academy as well, because your perspective is entirely different than mine could ever be. So, yeah. So that's languaging.
Yes. Yes.
Specific. I mean, obviously, you come up here tomorrow, and there's the fun factor that's going to be beyond debate. But for conference purposes, at least this particular Violence Dynamics Boston, anything in particular that you're looking forward to? I do have something specific I want to ask you about, but anything in generic first?
I think certainly I look at the fun factor, right?
Right.
But I was thinking about this, and why is it such a thing, particularly as a school owner, right? You know what it takes to get everything in order so that you can be gone. You know, that's a heavy lift home in that standpoint. So I was thinking about, like, why do I get excited then when I run off and do these things, as much work as it is to be able to leave? And the team that we work with, are the Violence Dynamics teaching team, is one of the few groups. I think there's been literally one other group of people that I had a period of time many years ago that is, and I'm pausing because now somebody's doing yard work. Is that too much noise? Okay, all right. There's something happening if I need to go inside. So this is like one other group of people that I had the opportunity to work with many, many years ago, that when you sit down at the table with each other, it's literally what you see is what you get. And the conversations are honest and blunt, even to the point of being blunt. And if there's disagreement, we disagree. If there's a bullshit flag somebody's going to throw, it gets thrown. And done in space or an understanding of a baseline of mutual respect. So and that's just super rare that you get, you know, like when you do, and I think it's perhaps even more rare if we like go up the pyramid and we get smaller and smaller in the violence world, or if we get smaller still in the martial arts world. It's super rare that you can get a bunch of, essentially, if we're going to use the whole alpha thing, right? A bunch of alpha-oriented people and put them all at a table together who all essentially kind of do their own variation of the same thing. You know, right? We're all set up to teach all the pieces in case somebody gets sick or loses an eye, or all the things that have tried to happen over the years. So we're interchangeable. And so you put all those people at the same table in the martial arts community. Like that doesn't happen. People are like spearing each other, you know.
Usually, yeah.
So, so I really look forward to that because it's such a rare experience and it is such a fantastic one. I like, yeah. So,
I'm biased on this one because out of all the Violence Dynamics, ConCom happens to be one of the things I look forward to every time. And for the first time that I'm aware of, it's going to be broken into pieces over that course of that day. Have you done that yet? Is this just it's going to be first formal pass with a lot of physicality in between?
In a way, yes. I have done it before, not like this. So this is a scheduled, we got an hour, ConCom, boom. Then we do other things. And then we have, and then I have another hour. So there's another environment where I do this in, and I split it up because the population, the people that I'm working with, like sitting for 3 hours is not going to happen as far as like being able to digest the information. And so we split it up. I take all day and I do a little bit, and then I kind of get to watch, and it's a very small group of people. So it's very interact dialogue. And then, it's like usually 10 to 12 people. And then there's a time where we get to stop and it's like, all right, let's go hit stuff, for a while, and then we come back. So I have broken it up, but not in this structured of a way that it needs to be provided. So it'll be interesting.
Cool. That's, again, I'm biased. I'm looking forward to that very much. You have the PhD background, or PsyD background, I should say. So you are not a corrections officer. You're not the SWAT team leader. Didn't kick people's asses on a door for many years. So you bring a totally different viewpoint, point of view, perspective to it. Obviously, that's something fun during the course of Violence Dynamics, but going it back, what made you want to become a self-defense instructor out of that?
I get asked that question a lot, and I guess it's because it feels like odd to people. Like, why would you? We're not pulling down, millions of dollars in our industry. So I think
PhD. I thought that's what that PhD stood for: printing money.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. So but people have a tendency to think that if you have a doctorate degree, and especially in the psychology field, and you can practice, that you're like rolling in it, and and there's definitely the possibility of making a really good living. There's no doubt about that. That being said, the work that I did for a very long time in my practice, particularly when I was in Texas, because that's where I had the majority of the timeline in private practice, worked with a tremendous amount of individuals coming from violent backgrounds or violent encounters, because I was a receiving therapist for the Harris County Victims Assistance Program, which is the Harris County is the Houston County. So if there was somebody who was like going through the court system and I could take them, and it was a billing contractual agreement kind of thing.
Is it the victims or the people who'd been arrested?
So in this instance, it's the victims. So I had a lot of people who were really fresh, from that standpoint. Like, hey, so I got referred to you by Victims Assistance Program and blah blah, and it's like, cool, yeah. So I just got out of the hospital last week. I was shot 3 times, like this is very fresh. And then of course, classic. I would say of course, but classically, I've worked with vets. I've worked with law enforcement. I've worked with survivors of all kinds of, sexual assault and blah, 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 blah. So all the things. And so dominantly my practice, that was the population. And then way back when I was first, you cut your teeth when you first get licensed and you do the jobs that, quote, nobody wants. Although I really enjoyed this. I worked for a period of, in various levels, 7 years with people, violent offenders. So like all of that period of time frame. So I have this scope in the background, but working, God, I don't want to say jaded necessarily, but I just reached this point where it was like, oh my God, you know, not that I don't want to hear your story anymore, but I
can only absorb so much.
Sorry, somebody.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, and also from the standpoint of like, why is it the expectation that culturally and societally what we do is we put the pieces back together? Why is that the expectation? That's what, and it really is a hardcore expectation that we
reactive,
just
not proactive.
Yeah, like until something bad happens, and then we put the pieces back together. Obviously, that's the whole business I was in a sense. But when it comes to violent encounters, it's like we know violence happens. It's part of who we are as predators. It's part of our culture. It's part of society. It's part of humans. So why is that the thing? I'm just, and then be on the other side of that shattered looking glass and go, holy fuck, and have to put the pieces back together. When we know this happens, why aren't we doing something about it on the other side? So that was the beginning of this. Becoming a self-defense instructor was like scratching my head at this after, 20 some odd years in the industry going, I think we have this backwards. So that's the short answer.
So Tammy's version is short.
Yeah, because there's a
opportunity to build up instead of repair.
Yes, and to also to strengthen. So we build. Yeah, and I lived in Houston for almost 20 years. The closer you got to the coastline, new construction was built to withstand hurricanes.
Yeah.
So, it's like we learned to build something to withstand the impact. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of look at it that way, like self-defense is about building something to withstand the impact. You live in the Gulf Coast, you're going to have hurricanes. Hello.
Yep.
It's not like, well, we haven't had a good hit. So it's not going to happen anymore. It's like, all right, so good. We have 15 years of, not, Cat 3 hurricanes coming through, building stuff that we can build resilient buildings. We should be building resilient people. We can do that. Yep. We know how.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm gonna. What's your expression? I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to it later, because it's going to become relevant. So, backing up historically a little bit, how did you first run into Rory? Step 2 of that question into like getting pulled into the larger violence dynamics ecosphere.
So I met Rory because somebody recommended that I read Meditations on Violence. And actually somebody recommended, I was asking for book recommendations for somebody, and it was on the list. I'm like, I haven't read that one. I've read the others. So I read Meditations on Violence, and I was like, this is, right, that cold, the response most of us had when we read it, we were like, oh my God.
Where was this? Where was this?
Where was this? Yes. And the whole conversation, like, who is this person and why is he running around inside my head? Because that's just a little weird. just a little creepy that you're in my head. So I read the book, and then I met with a friend of mine who's over in the UK, runs several successful martial arts schools. He was here in the United States teaching something. If he watches this, hi, John. Hey, John. Talking about you. So, Jonathan was over in my neck of the woods teaching something many years ago, and took him out to dinner, and we were talking about, I think he had just had Rory out or was about to have him out for the first time. And I'm like, I am so jealous. You get to, train with Rory Miller. And he's like, you absolutely have to do this. I was like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. He's like, no. Like you personally need to go do this. So tracked it. So he gave me Roy's email. The joke is that I sent Roy an email. He's like, hey, I'm leaving the country for a while, so I won't be around. Give me a call. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to pick up the phone and go, yo, Rory. Seriously. So, but he meant it. I did. So, yeah. So I got on the phone with him, and we compared notes and found someplace he was going to be on the circuit not too far from us. And this was, I'm trying to remember how many years ago now this was. I don't remember. Something like that, 3, 4. So went and trained with him. Fantastic experience. Came home, and of course, my brain just were spinning. And I'm like, hey, can I ask, follow up email? Like, hey, would it be okay? You said we could email you, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, go ahead. Like, be careful what you ask for. They're like,
the gate just opened.
Yes, Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And so then we just started this dialogue, which then evolved into more training and more dialogue and more conversation, and then actually like beginning to work together, or the goal of beginning to work together, which is what led to Violence Dynamics. So,
I first met you at the conference in San Diego, I think it's 3 years ago now.
Okay. So then it's been 4.
So okay. You knew Roy the year before that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So still fairly fresh at that point. And there's a whole lot of fun stories about San Diego, but I think that'll have to be come to the Saturday night barbecue here in Natick. We can tell you stories then, not doing on Facebook Live. So
yeah, place for that.
You broke up there. I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, this would not be the place for that.
No. Finishing up that line of questioning. So you get brought in by Rory. You obviously become part of the. Casey just asked if these are human years. Yes, Casey, we're working on the current calendar so that way all the rest of us normal human beings can kind of keep up with what Tammy's talking about. We'll the first age of Middle Earth we'll talk about later. I think that's for you, Casey, not me. I'm gonna pass that one on to you. Obviously, like Roy's talked about it, Casey talked about it, Randy talked about it. What is it about like the way Violence Dynamics comes together that is particularly cool, interesting, fun, different, worthwhile, et cetera, et cetera?
You get to be whoever you are when you come to Violence Dynamics. I think because we talked a little bit ahead and so I thought about that one because that could be 45-minute answer. So I was like, all right, girlfriend, slow it down. You get to be who you are when you walk through the door. So if you're a Leo who's like, here's another group of people who's going to tell me how to do my job, or you're an experienced martial artist who's skeptical because they've seen, other big names who are, then when you get inside the house, you're like, wow, that was not really worth the time and the money. Yeah. Or you get, or you're that person who's, never hit anything, and you're going to come spend 3 to 4 days doing like manhandling bodies. Like, holy fuck, right? So whoever you get to be that, and there is no expectation that you remain that. So it's like the container of Violence Dynamics is like humans are fluid. So go be fluid in any given moment. And that's going to be cool. Like whoever you are in that moment is going to be totally cool. And if you're somebody different in the next moment, that's cool too. We'll work with that. You get to be you. And I think that is singularly unique.
Cool. That's, I agree with that. I've definitely looked, I'm a training geek. I like to go out and train, and any opportunity I have to find, doesn't matter if it's what I do or not. If I have an opportunity to go out and do it, I will. for my part, one of the things I'll always tell like my academy, my members is I go out there and I try to vet. And if I think this has, potential value for your end game goal, I will always try to bring in those people or that paradigm or that shift. And certainly everything about the way violence dynamics is put together and what the end goal is why I don't shut down this academy very much, and I'm shutting it down pretty much for 2 days. So, which you understand because you just did it last year in DC, right? It's hard. I have a lot of friends that own martial arts schools. I don't have a lot of female friends that own martial arts schools. You are not a complete unicorn there, but you're pretty damn close. This is probably a book series that I'm about to ask the question on. So I'm going to give you like 5 minutes. Realizations that you as a female school owner have come to that are interesting, unique, kind of like I said before, interesting, unique. Your point of view is different. I've certainly you've certainly told me some funny stories, which may or may not be relevant for Alive. So I will let you decide that or not. But yeah, I guess run with that. I'll watch the clock though.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting. I was, I say this, somewhat tongue in cheek. I was kind of an idiot when I went into the industry because it didn't occur to me that being a female owner of a martial arts, combat arts school was anything that I should be conscious of. I was just like, sure, why not? What the hell?
It probably benefited you on some level.
Yeah, probably, point. So, fat, dumb, and happy. Like, why shouldn't I? And then so I learned a lot along the way, especially in that first year. And there's a weird resistance to it in across genders. So and I think we were in the first year we were open in our current facility, which we've been in. I had a mom and dad team come in with a daughter who was locally going to college. So I was trying to place the daughter. And so they were going to train. They wanted her to train. So they knew the best way to get her to train was to do it with them. The mom was about my height, maybe even a little shorter. And so she comes in and they're talking and, doing the whole entry thing. We're doing the whole conversation about, this is what we're going to do and this is how you train, have a free class. And so then it's time for class. And I needed to put on my instructor shirt. So I was like, hey, I'll be back in a second. I walked off and changed and I came back and she was like, you're the instructor. Mm-hmm. She's like, but you're so unassuming.
What'd you expect?
I'm like, she's expected, like, roar at the desk, I'm going to eat you. And, like, you must sell, firstborn children for lunch tomorrow. Or like, I was authentically surprised to hear that from a female who was about my same stature. It's like, she's up against the same things in the universe as I am. And she's like, but you're I can't believe that you're the instructor. So for me, for whatever reason, I get it more from the women than I get it from the guys. And I don't know if that's because the guy walks into the gym and he's like, what? If you haven't been on my website, it would be a surprise. And maybe out of to be politically correct, that those words don't come out of their mouth. Mm-hmm. The words come out of the female's mouth. So it's just interesting bias on the fence. And in the industry, some biases too. Like even female instructors that I know have made the comment, like, I don't think I could be a I don't think I could run the school by myself. I need to have a. It's like, well, it's nice to have, we all need role models. So I'm glad I've got some guys on the mat who can teach. But if I didn't, that doesn't mean I couldn't successfully have the school, or I couldn't successfully teach my male students. That's about the depth that you have as an instructor. So I'm like, I don't get that. She's very adamant about it. Like, no, it's got to be, I'm glad I have that, but I don't think it's a have to have a successful school. So interesting things. And then of course, I've had friends in the Krav Maga industry who are also instructors who have very quietly under the table said, I'm glad we train women. I think that's good. But I don't think women can actually be believable Krav Maga instructors. Not really.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, good to know. So we're sitting here having dinner together. That's nice.
I'm going to stab you with my fork. Okay.
So very interesting. Yeah. Again, I had no anticipation that was the world, and those were the biases I was stepping into. It was like, oh fuck, there's a wall there.
Yeah, that's I'm probably the physical archetype that people would generally expect when you walk into a martial arts school.
Yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I am benefited by an awesome team that is heavily female on a percentage basis.
Yeah.
We have I'm not a female instructor, so when people ask like, well, how do you have a high level of females training, especially like teenage girls, an at-risk population? And I said, well, because I have awesome staff that are girls and they look up to them and they're like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. It's just one of the most easy confirmation bias out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes. I think also. I mean, you have that now.
Right.
You probably didn't started, right? Just you, like started. So
it was me.
Yeah, just you. So there is something about how about the depth of your context for languaging. I was working for the words. The depth of your context for what it means to do what you do, to do what we do. That when you see somebody, you're like, I've never been that. You don't, obviously back then, or you wouldn't have what you have now with all the women who are there in your program who are high-ranked people. You obviously didn't go, well, I've never been a teenage girl. How it is. Because if you had been that, you wouldn't have what you have now. So
what's Casey's quote? The solution is always to be a 220-pound male wrestler.
Yes. Ta-da! And you'll be fine. And then you're like,
solves a lot of problems.
Yes. I'll be had in my next life. But in the meantime, in this incarnation.
When you come back from the far shores of the Elfkind.
Yes. I will come back as a hybrid of you and Casey.
Ooh, that's going to be a lot of hair. It's a lot of hair. Not here, but so much. But
I was just not touching that one.
Listen, you're in the club. The jokes are fine. It's good. So #500. You are working on that in some way, shape, or form. I know that there's kind of procedural level stuff being built and worked on. Casey said, gross. What is
green? Is that what's gross?
No, all the hair or a hybrid.
All the hair.
So what's status of #500? And I'm going to make this kind of shorter. For those who don't know what that is, Tammy's blog, Dangerous Realities. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Dangerous Realities. Go read that blog because that's going to jump you forward. So if you're like, what the hell's hashtag 500? No. Go read that blog. Tammy's going to give a 22-second elevator speech on that, and then talk about going forward on status and where we're at and where it's going.
22-second elevator pitch. Wow, you really throwing down the gauntlet there. I can't do anything in 22 seconds. Okay, so
we're not doing phrasing, huh?
No, we are not.
All right.
Okay, so I'm so distracted. All right. So hashtag 500 was my rant response to not the whole hashtag me too, all that kind of stuff. Not that I think that's bad or wrong by any means. It's awareness is great, and then what, right? So back to we can build resilient houses against hurricanes. Why aren't we building resilient people? Particularly when our statistics around violence against women haven't really shifted much in the last 20 years, or maybe even more than that. But, you know, we've got all these new laws, we've got all these new trainings that we do. We've done all the things, but the stats haven't changed, which is like, we should be wondering about that. Why have the stats not changed? So part of that, I think, is we're not, for us as women, and this is going to get me in a lot of hot water with a lot of people. So we are not taking responsibility for the part that belongs to us. And as a whole, we want, and this is not bad or wrong, that society needs to do better with all the things.
Are you suggesting it's possible to separate responsibility from victim blaming somehow?
Go figure.
I would want you tap dance your way around that one.
I am completely suggesting that, absolutely suggesting that. And because they are different, the Latin, and I get all crazy on this one, but the Latin root of the word responsibility is, and I didn't really learn Latin, so I probably don't say it verbally correctly, linguistically, so I won't, but it literally means to respond back. Like something happens and I'm going to respond back to that. And we've morphed it into this ethical thing, right? So it is my response ability. I am able to respond. Okay, so we are able to respond to the statistics and the realities that have existed for a few hundred years. I'm using that language loosely. We can go back and deep into history on all this stuff. So we have a responsibility. Owning what I can be responsible for, my ability to respond to the circumstances of the universe, is different than this was your fault. It's like totally different. They're not even in the same universe. But boy, do they get like, wow, those little puppies walked each other down the aisle. They did a blood oath, and never again can we separate them. And it's just crazy making for me. So they're not the same. So hashtag 500 was a little bit of a rant response to kind of the because of pain, this is like the world is changing. And there's no doubt that people have attached some of the actions that have taken place to Me Too. Okay, cool. Great correlation. That's fine. But what are we doing to create how are we building? Yeah, I know. How are we building we're not building the resilient homes, right? So let's do that. Let's go out. Let's train women to train other women. And let's, there's a tipping point out there somewhere, a magical statistical tipping point that you get that many women trained, that many girls trained, the statistics are going to shift. It's just going to happen. So,
summing that up, it's your fault, credit really, that we have a version of that here in Natick. My program director, Allison, had been bugging me for a little while about teaching, off and again self-defense seminars, and I have a mild hatred for them because the fear of creating some manner of false confidence is terrifying to me. Right? You and I have both heard people be like, I took a 1-hour class and now I'm safe. I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I went down to visit you at DC 2 years ago, I think it was, we played to play Infight with Rory, and you had the first Friday class, and I was like, so what's this class? How does this work? Oh, every Friday or every first Friday of the month. Oh, it's a recurring series. I can get behind a recurring series. That's not just okay. All right. So I started, and I love that it's, I intentionally on purpose basically lock myself in my office so as not to like be that person in the background, like poking and like, hey, you should, what about, don't forget. I'm like, no. You guys do a great job with this. I'm going to go stay over here. And, if there's something I can help up with or a question or, in June, I get to go in the suits at the very end. She culminates in a scenarios with suits. So I do get to play the bad guy, which is fun. But yeah, totally to your credit. And I guess one of the unofficial first extensions of the 500 is here and working on it and pushing people forward.
Allison has done a fantastic job with that, and I got carried away, and so I didn't really answer the question like about what's happening with 500 now. So do you want me to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So what's happening now is dialogue. So we've been in conversation about a couple of where is it going to live organizationally. I wanted to abdicate a degree of responsibility. I wanted it to be under Chiron. It's like I need one more entity to run.
Yeah.
No. And I'm like, here, we'll put it under, Roy's like, no. And not no as in like, I don't want it, because he wants to basically put any energy he can behind it. But he had a point, which is it should be run, established, et cetera, by women, not under an organization established by men. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Okay. So we're working on, we've been having that dialogue, trying to figure out where it's going to settle. And then the next dialogue is, and that's kind of about settled out. So then the next conversation is about, in a way, team building. I've had several people step up with like, hey, and so, which is so cool, to have that happen. So now it's about figuring out how to create that team out of all those resources that are like, hey, I'm here, I want to help. And then I think, and I could be totally wrong, so we'll find out as we put this together. I think the next step is to develop a weekend seminar that's a combination of the it's sort of like a beta run of material, like if I only have a weekend, what am I going to teach? What do we teach? And beta test that a few times and get a product that we can then start doing the 500 thing. Now let's get people trained. And then you go take that product. And the idea is 500 women go out and train 500 more women. And then it's 500 train 500 more, right? So that's where my brain's cooking right now. I've been doing some research is not really the right word because I scientifically can't call it research. But I've been data mining people and thoughts and
background work,
yes. And because I have some very distinct biases that are going to affect how I approach this. So I'm checking and bouncing those biases off a kind of very self-selecting community, right? All my friends people on Facebook that are part of this world, self-selecting community, but bouncing off, like looking for the biases, looking for the holes, researching stuff that's out there that might actually be really good at the physical level that maybe I've never seen before. I have my training lane, right? So, and having conversations with some fantastic Corner Cat about 2 weeks and a half ago now, maybe 2 weeks ago, And because I put that thing on Facebook where I was like, hey, what are all the horrible things you've heard somebody say in women's self-defense? And she's like, can we get on the phone? Because she's, I don't know how many decades in as a firearms instructor, right? So
Kathy Jackson.
That was a very fascinating conversation. Yeah, Kathy Jackson. So talking about all the things. So yeah, so that's the next step is versus deciding how to move forward with the resources that have stocked up and working with that and creating an initial, I hate to call it a product, but an initial thing. So there's something we can touch and then see what happens.
Right. Well, I don't think product's the wrong name for it. See, this is where you and I could easily like float away on the next hour of conversation. So I don't think product we tend to think of as like, oh, I'm going to hawk this thing or have a negative salesy type connotation. It's no, I don't. It's producing an object with a goal. Schools do it all the time, right? So, course, curriculum, product. I think they all ultimately do the same thing. So, languaging. Kind of sort of wrapping up. You are a brand new person. You're coming to a Viadai conference for the first time. How do you get the most out of it?
Very much the way I answered the question about earlier. I don't remember what the question was now. Why we is like so
you broke up there.
That and better? Am I here?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So just like the as far as like the instructor team, the product says, hey, you come, just show up, be who you are. And there's no expectation behind that except for show up and be who you are. I think we can answer this question with the same answer in a sense. Like, so be conscious about who you are when you show up in the door and be, so don't be like, if it's the first time you've never ever done anything like this before, you don't know any of the people, if you're a little like, this is uncomfortable or a little awkward or anxious making or whatever we want to call that, don't walk through the door and like, I've got this, like just, if you show up in your own skin and you show up in your own skin conscious of what that skin feels like, then you're going to get a tremendous amount out of the experience because it's all based on where we're at any given moment. Because we have people come back year after year and they're basically getting the same material, but with tweaks and variations, but they walk away going, that was fantastic, even though I've heard it before, right? Because our filters shift and change, what we hear changes. So show up in the skin that you live in and embrace that as you participate in the experience, and it's going to be awesome for you, whatever that's cool. Skin is, like
whoever you come as.
Yeah, whoever you come as. And now Casey's going to show up in his Batman thing, right?
Well, that was a foregone conclusion. There was no debate on that. I'm just going to read back real quick. I don't think there were too many. A lot of the comments kind of went towards whatever we were talking about at that moment in time. So like Casey wrote some assembly acquired half hour ago. I don't remember what it was about. So sorry, Casey. Reference to human years. Ha, gross. Hashtag 500. The blog, Dangerously Beautiful is the title, but isn't it Dangerous Realities is the actual URL?
Yeah, I think so. Let me find out.
You should probably know, your blog name.
I should probably know, but
yeah,
things that I don't pay attention to, like URLs.
I think Allie at a certain point poking us back towards Tammy. Can you speak to the larger vision of 500 when we got off?
Yeah, probably.
Allison Manzella wrote First Friday, great idea. We love it and the community loves it. And thanks. I can't wait to chat about it when you're here in T-minus 24 hours. And I'm not going to make whatever that noise is at the end. Casey wrote Prime Day Zero, and that was talking about incorporating some new. How much of this should I say? Well, I could say it, right?
Yeah, go.
Casey, thumbs up, down.
Yeah. Casey said, because I had the same conversation before on a Facebook Live, and Casey was like, "Yeah, go for it."
Okay, so every Advanced Dynamics, when possible, there's a day zero. We're going to have our day zero here in Natick, and it's going to be, to a certain extent, all 4 instructors putting their little spices and ideas and point of view on big concepts and big topics and kind of playing. And the idea being day zero in Minnesota is going to be half Alvatier / 500.
Yeah.
I don't names, languaging. The other half being a range day with Casey Cabot, his friend Cabot, his instructor Cabot there. So he wrote here on that's what Prime Day Zero refers to. Casey, if I'm saying anything wrong, let me know. But I believe that's the current idea for Minnesota in October, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. Is that's our big target date for 2018. Is inside of BioDi we call it Alvatier because it has that acronym.
It's got to fit the theme.
It's got to fit the theme, right? It has to.
Where's Randy? Randy's watching it. Brandy, right? So Alvatier's got to fit all the other Norse words that I can't pronounce.
Hang on 2 seconds, if you don't mind. I have a kid I need to talk to, and they're going to be able to hear you. So we're live on the internet.
Oh.
Oh.
Hi guys. I was just letting you know that I'm getting a call back from them. To call them.
Okay.
The contract is all good.
Okay.
But I'm just checking up on the remaining thing, and I have to get to the manager.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. We're managing how dorms and all that. He goes off to college in the fall, and all has to be done now. So anyway,
that's
updating me.
Development, right?
It is.
All right, so
sorry.
that's all the questions that I had. And Casey, Allison McDonald wrote, "Hi, Liam." So, I guess, what do I pick you up at about 20 hours from the airport? So that'll be fun. Yes. What was it? What's the latte again? Mocha? No. You got to remind me the Starbucks order so I can get it right.
Latte.
Hazelnut latte. Okay.
Double tall.
Double tall hazelnut latte. I will try to make sure it's in my phone. All right, cool. This was fun, cool. And we came in under an hour, so yes, that's not too bad.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I have a feeling for all those who have been watching the Advanced Dynamics Facebook page, thank you. No doubt, I think starting tomorrow, there's probably going to be a pretty big series of like media lives. I think Casey's planning on jumping on briefly live tomorrow. Wednesday is a day zero, but when Randy's here, and Randy loves being on, every possible social media out there. So, and he's awesome at it, and that's what he's fun to listen to. So I have no doubt that'll be probably most of the case. So in case you just wrote, see y'all tomorrow. I can't do the y'all. It doesn't roll off.
Oh, I'll get you there.
You can keep trying.
Because the real goal is the plural. Because y'all is singular.
Y'all is singular. Okay.
Yeah. So all y'all.
Well, the best part is you already say wicked, so you're going to blend right into the Boston crowd, no problem whatsoever.
Yes. So we'll see all y'all.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it.
It was fun.
All right. I'll end this now. Bye, guys.
All right. Ciao.